Take a look at the tweet on your screen. If you're just looking at this or listening to this, it simply states, if you're Devin Haney, take a couple years off, spend my money, see the world, and I'll come back after a few years. And then once Ryan Garcia is over his punishment, then we'll see what it is. This is your boy JG. This is the Punch Report. In this video, things go from bad to worse for Devin Haney. The last 24 hours have not been ideal if you're Team Haney, Bill, or Devin, or any other associated individuals, and I'm going to explain to you why. So yesterday was Tuesday, and they had the purse bid. I think most of us were well aware that the WBC mandatory 140-pound champion Devin Haney had a purse bid scenario with one Sandor Martin waiting in the wings. It went to bid. Top Rank got the rights to the fight to produce and put on the bout. They got it for like $2.4 million. Now, if you don't understand how purse bids work, 10% of that will go to the WBC, 70-30 auto split to Devin Haney as a champion. The other 30 goes to Sandor Martin. As you know, Devin Haney's been cashing really big checks ever since he got a front-loaded contract from DAZN many years ago. And he's just used to getting a better situation or purse going into these bouts. But this, for me, is where it gets really, really concerning. It was revealed earlier this morning that there was only a single bidder for the bout. So, in plain language, only one entity, one promotional company, was interested in putting the bout on between Devin Haney and Sandor Martin. And that's for a variety of reasons that I will cover in this video. That's just generally, before I get into that, not a really great look for a guy in Devin Haney who he and his father claimed was the face of boxing, was the new wave, was the new era. I have some issues with that, so to speak, but I'll also cover that in this video, keeping with the ongoing developments. Once it was discovered that only one entity had bid, Devin Haney said, "Oh man, I should have bid for the deal." And he had some choice words on X, formerly known as Twitter, to Matchroom, simply stating, "Hey, look, listen, that's nasty work. You guys didn't want to throw a bid in on that." And if you take a look here at this tweet by Ariel Helwani, it's a quote from Eddie Hearn, and it simply states, quote, "We don't have a contract with Devin. It's not an appealing fight, wasn't a fight DAZN was motivated by, or one that had any value. Devin's a free agent, and he has his own promotional company." And I forget at the moment who said as much as well, but they mentioned that DHP, Devin Haney Promotions, also has his own promotional company. If it meant that much to him and it was a legit organization, why did they not put a bid in themselves? It's a great question to ask. Now let's get into the real issues here facing Devin Haney. You've gone back and forth about wanting to fight Ryan Garcia. You stated, "I'd never fight this individual again," on ESPN the day after it broke that he had tested positive. And now you're saying you're going to take 2 years off and double back and fight him. That's telling, because I'm thinking to myself, if you really take the 2 years off, you're going to dump the belt, the WBC 140-pound championship belt, making it vacant. Sandor and whoever will fight for that next. The issue with that is this. Let's say, hypothetically, Devin Haney actually does take multiple years off to get himself right, which I don't necessarily disagree with that position. But what it makes him is a 140-pound guy in the division coming off a knockout loss with no belt. He's not a champion. Furthermore, he's a tough sell. As we know, unless someone's going to educate me in the comment section, we still do not have pay-per-view numbers for, not Gervonta Tank Davis, excuse me, for Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. That leads me to believe that fight struggled to sell in pay-per-views. I know they had a decent gate, but overall ticket sales were much lower than normally anticipated, or what was anticipated, excuse me. So you already have a fighter in Devin Haney before the Ryan Garcia loss that was a tough sale already. Then you have a guy potentially who has no belt if he takes a 2-year layoff, coming off a bad loss, with poor marketability before the loss, and he's going to be demanding for himself, he and his team, big fights, the biggest names, a rematch with Ryan Garcia, because he's always going to be someone who's super marketable because he's a little bit unhinged. I'm pretty sure he needs some professional help, but he can knock people out. He's a sensational knockout artist. Tank Davis, who in that period of time, who knows what he would have accomplished. You're definitely not going to be in the driver's seat from the perspective of demanding a fight with the guy that many consider to be the face of boxing, that being Tank Davis. So if you're Devin Haney, you really find yourself legitimately in a really tough and precarious situation where bad loss, it seems you're waiting around for the result of what's Insac going to do about Ryan Garcia when you could just negotiate with Sandor Martin, but you don't seem interested? Devin Haney put out a tweet yesterday also, it was either yesterday or the day before, and he stated that he's already had all the belts. So he's dropping hints and clues that are saying, I don't know how interested I am in hanging onto this belt if I got to fight for like $1.5 million or be involved in fights that don't really suit me. The unfortunate thing for Devin Haney is you're not in the driver's seat. And I've stated that before. You're not in the driver's seat. And this is looking like, let me stop right there. Let's say, this is an analogy. Let's say you get in a situation, right? A legal situation. And let's say something like a DUI. You get a DUI and you say to yourself, you know, I had a gun in the car, I was drinking and driving, and I also have a prior arrest for possession, right? So that's a complex situation or scenario. You could go to court with a public defender or represent yourself, but that's a terrible idea. That's going to result in fines, possible jail time, revocation of your license, things of that nature. So why would you go into any scenario like that where you have a multitude of complexities on your own? That's a bad idea. And the reason why I use this analogy is Devin Haney and team seem to be operating the space of boxing from a business side on their own. They're making a lot of really questionable decisions with Devin's career, which was going great. The one thing that Devin had going for him for sure is he was fighting people, calling everyone out, and getting key victories. Up until they made this weird pivot of trying to make Devin like a bad guy and talk shit and he's the face of boxing without demonstrating the ability to legitimately be the face of boxing. And that's bigger than your ability to punch and hit, not get hit pugilism, right? You have to sell, you have to be marketable, you have to transcend certain, racial lines and divides to get more people to buy into who you are as a fighter, as a competitor. And I think by and large, Devin Haney's been unable to do that. So you start to examine a lot of the business decisions that they make, going back to the Ryan Garcia fight as well. No rematch clause for your champion. You complained about the weight after the fact, after accepting the money. You had a guy on standby prepared to fight, and you still went through with the bout with Ryan Garcia when he demonstrated over and over again that he wasn't really willing to be a professional. That's not a knock. That's a reality of the situation. There was a lot of, and I did a video. The video, I think the day of the bout, before the bout dropped, that said, is this fight worth it for Devin Haney? You go into this bout with a guy who's going to have a bunch of advantage physically because he didn't even try to make weight. He's acted like a crazy person. When he comes up dirty, when he came up dirty, it wasn't super shocking. And I'm not saying that he cheated or didn't cheat. What I am saying is he was generally irresponsible. You take Devin Haney, if you're Bill, your son, and you put him in harm's way in a sport that's already inherently dangerous. It's just confusing to me from a boxing perspective and a business perspective. Now you're officially on the outside looking in. You're looking at a champion who might take some time off after a beating, which is fine, who doesn't have a sensational, eye-catching style. He doesn't score a lot of knockouts. And he just came up in a purse bid for a mandatory situation with one suitor for $2.4 million. It's just not looking really good from a business perspective from Devin Haney. I would strongly encourage he and the team get together with people who are more familiar with, contract language, what's going to be the best interest of a guy who's currently a champion, who may not be a champion, and start figuring out a road back to being someone that's high in demand at 140 pounds or wherever he ends up fighting. Ultimately, this is where we're at. Eddie Hearn wasn't interested for good reason. Your last fight didn't do well despite the antics, or quite honestly, because of the antics, it probably pushed numbers way down because people didn't believe you'd even get to the point of making the bout or to be some sort of mockery. You took a bad loss there. You weren't super marketable before. You're definitely not marketable now. And you're entertaining the idea of dropping the belt to take some time away to come back and fight a guy that you said you weren't going to fight, that being Ryan Garcia. And like I mentioned before in this video, if you dump the belt, you're just a guy at 140 with low marketability coming off a loss. This is your boy JG. This has been the Punch Report. Let me know, where does Devin Haney go from here? What's his next steps? We out.